So, who are you when you're not at work? And maybe more importantly, is that person even allowed to show up at work? I mean, that's a huge question, right? But today, we're going to explore it by looking at a really simple personal list of interests. Okay, let's dive into this, because this idea, it might just change how you see your own career.
And it all starts in this quiet, simple moment. Our author doesn't kick things off with some grand theory, but with the feeling of a morning coffee. You know that feeling, right? That unrushed, mindful space where your thoughts can actually breathe. And it's in a space just like that where the really interesting questions about who we are, well, they start to bubble up.
So that wandering mind, it leads to this really powerful metaphor. The author doesn't just call these interests hobbies. No, they're framed as currents, these invisible forces that are constantly pulling us in certain directions, shaping the path we take.
What's so cool about this idea is how dynamic it is. See, these aren't static labels you put on yourself. A current could be super strong one month and then barely a rickle the next. They can clash and create some chaos, or they can flow together perfectly. The main takeaway here is that our identity isn't some fixed point. It's more like a flowing river, a mix of all these twisting and turning ideas.
Okay, so what are these currents for the author? This is where it gets really fun. Let's take a quick tour through the 10 big ideas that they just can't get out of their head. And get ready, because it's a pretty eclectic mix.
Just look at this list. It is a beautiful jumble, isn't it? You've got these really deep philosophical ideas like purpose right next to something super pragmatic like passive income. You have the techie stuff, programming and AI, sitting right alongside the aesthetic, like elegance and something deeply personal, sensuality. At first glance, you might think, how in the world does all this fit together?
Well, this wild mix of interests leads the author to ask a brilliant question, a question they decided to pose, kind of just for fun, to an AI. And the answer that came back was surprisingly profound.
Seriously, think about that for a second. If you took all your deepest interests, the stuff you geek out on, and put them in a job description, what would that job even be called? The author asks, who is the client? And what do I offer that is uniquely me? It's a question that gets right to the heart of what meaningful work actually looks like.
And wow, the AI's answer was pretty incredible. It came back with polymathic strategist who helps thoughtful, unconventional people. This just nails the core insight. It's not about anyone's skill, it's about the synthesis of all of them. Sensuality meets systems, depth meets design, thinking meets feeling. The AI saw a single, coherent identity where most of us would probably just see a random list of hobbies. Of course, the author's reaction is just so perfectly human and, frankly, hilarious. It's easy to hear something like that and think it's just a bunch of flattery. But they also admit, in principle, I agree with it. And there's a real truth there. Even if it sounds a bit grand, it recognizes that the unique combination of all these interests is what makes a person who they are. And this whole personal journey leads us right into a dilemma that I'm willing to bet almost everyone has faced in their career. How do we connect our complex, messy, multifaceted selves with the neat, tidy, and often narrow boxes of a job description?
Here's the core conflict. Are we supposed to be clinical and pragmatic at work, packaging our skills into these neat, sellable services? Or is there room for the other side of us, for the creativity, the self-expression, the whole shebang? Most corporate jobs, let's be honest, they push us firmly into that first column.
And this is the result of all that pressure. It's that feeling of being compartmentalized, like you have to leave huge parts of yourself at the door when you clock in. The author mentions that this is exactly what they want to change, and that maybe, just maybe, self-employment is the way to finally bring all those different currents together into one professional identity. So, after this whole journey, the final and I think most important step is to turn this question back on ourselves. Because this entire framework isn't just a thought exercise for one person. It's a tool that any of us can use. So forget about your job title for a minute. Forget your resume. What are the deep currents, the ideas and interests that are truly shaping you? What are the things you can't stop thinking about? Because as we've just seen, the synthesis of those currents, that's not just your personality. It might just be your most unique and most fulfilling professional calling.